I'm Pam McCue, and I'm honored to be here with you today talking about this beautiful exhibit, Who is the Man of the Shroud? This exhibit is available to take to churches and schools and other public venues and share. The goal of it is to share Jesus through his shroud. The Shroud of Turin has a fascinating history. It is so very compelling. There is much known about it. In fact, it's widely believed to be the most studied object in the world. Yet there are things about it that can't be explained and that cause us to draw on our faith and to look at Jesus. I have Nora Creech here with me today. And Nora, tell us about Othonia.
Okay, great. So Othonia is the word that's used in the Gospel of John when Peter and John run to the tomb and they see the stone is rolled away. And when they look in and they see what we always call the empty tomb, it really is not empty at all. There is the Othonia, which is a plural noun for the grave clothes that wrap Jesus' body. So that's where the name comes from, the Greek word Othonia. But Othonia is an organization which is a part of the Science and Faith Institute of the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum. So it's a pontifical university located in Rome, means Queen of the Angels. And they have the Science and Faith Institute, and Othonia is an apostolate of the Science and Faith Institute with the goal of making Jesus known through his shroud, through exhibits and educational opportunities, lectures, conferences, and also research.
Nora, tell us about the banners that are here in this exhibit.
Well, I was privileged to work with a team of experts from around the world to help to develop this exhibit. And the exhibit includes teaching banners or panels, and there's 24 didactic panels, and they go through the information about the shroud, explaining the history, the science, and then also the connection to the scriptures about the Shroud of Turin.
Very good. So talk a little bit about the components that we have here. What do you think are the important components?
So in addition to the banners, we also have the weapons of the crucifixion. So we have a cap of thorns or a crown of thorns. We have the scourges that show the metal barbells that were used to actually inflict pain on Jesus as part of the torture. We have nails that are replica nails that are based on archaeological digs of Roman crucifixions. And we have a spear tip, which matches the Roman lancia. And we also have a small replica of the tomb so that people can visualize how the body was laid in the tomb when it was discovered on that first Easter morning.
Awesome. And of course, we have the benefit of having a full-size replica, which is very special. It's a high-resolution photograph of the shroud, so it gives you a sense of what the Shroud of Turin, which is housed in Turin, Italy, actually looks like.
Yes, and then there's also these photographic negatives. So these banners are 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall. So they're a little bit larger than life size, but the photographic negative images are very good quality. It's a really great way for people to get up close and to examine all of the information that's available when you look at the shroud. Okay, so we're here in front of our beautiful full-size replica, and then we also have some of the other items that are in the exhibit that we wanted to discuss. And so I'm going to ask Pam some questions about the replica here. So what can you tell us about the replica, and how is it impactful in the exhibit?
Okay, so this is a full-size replica. It's what it looks very much like the shroud would look if you could see it displayed these days. It's about 14 feet long. All you shroud experts know that. I found that having this in an exhibit is very impactful because people they're in their mind the images, but they don't realize how long the cloth is and really what the configuration is. So when they see it, many people, their first reaction is, oh, that is much longer than I would have thought that it was. And it really gives them a sense of it. And then it's easy with the replica to describe how the man in the shroud was laid on one end and it was wrapped over the top. So when you have that long cloth, it gives you a better sense of that. So I found the replica to be very impactful. The fact that you can see, this is just a high quality photograph of it, but you can see the image and look at the different features in the image, the face and the facial hair, the beard and mustache, the wounds in the hands. You can look at the features.
Okay, wonderful. We're also here with the black and white images. So these are obviously the photo negatives, and they're available on the pull-up banner. So they're very transportable, they're very easy to show people, and they're very good quality.
So the photographic negatives is where you really get detail. The image on the replica itself is the shroud itself is very vague, but the detail is in the photographic negative, and you can really pull out details, especially of all the wounds from the Passion.
And one thing I really like about these photographic negatives is people can get up close to them, they can study them, and it helps to see them in the vertical format instead of the horizontal format. It's easier for them to understand sometimes. And then also the photographic negative brings the image back into the same, it's no longer a mirror image like we see in the natural color image. So people can see in the photographic negative that it's not the reverse anymore. So it's easier sometimes for people to understand. I know you have a really special thing that you like to point out to people using your iPad. And this is something that is really great for teenagers and young people about understanding the photographic negative. So can you please tell us about that?
So I learned this. I have to give credit from Jason Pearson from Southern California, who's the documentary maker. He's a super cool, very humble guy. And he was showing us this in Indianapolis. Many people may know it, but it's very easy to use with really any natural image of the shroud. So there is a mode on your smart devices, I've got my iPad, but also on smartphones, where you can put them in photographic negative mode. And with photographic negative mode, nothing looks normal. I'm gonna turn it around. And nothing looks normal. Nothing looks normal in photographic negative mode except Jesus on the shroud. And this is one of those very inexplicable things. Somehow, when the marking was made on the linen, it focuses it so that the photographic negative gives you this detail. And this is no different than looking at the photographic negative, but for some reason, people having their own smartphones that they can use and look at it themselves. Everybody wants to do it on their smartphone, and they want to take a picture, and they want to be able to go back home and show how it converts when you look at it in photographic negative.
It's really great for teenagers. It's one of the only times when you actually say to them, take out your phone and let's use it in this exhibit. So that's a really great tool.
Yes.
So we also have in the exhibit, we have a replica of the tomb and then some replicas of the weapons of the Passion. So I'd like to just point out, this is a really small replica, and it was designed to be lightweight and very portable. And so it's 3D printed, so it can be printed at various sizes, but it's a good replica of what scholars and historians think the tomb looked like. So it's a cutaway. So the way it's designed is that you can imagine that if Peter and John were running to the tomb on Easter morning, they would be looking down into the tomb. And so we get this cutaway, and you can see how it goes along with the scriptures. That first, John arrives at the tomb and he looks in, and you can imagine him kind of stooping down and looking and seeing that the stone has been rolled away, and he's looking into the tomb. And then Peter, of course, we know the scriptures tell us he comes, and of course he barges right on in, and he looks, and then John comes in and sees. And of course, in that very important scripture, John tells us he saw and believed. And so we have this ledge back here where the linen was lying, as it says in the scripture. So as if the body just vaporized through the fabric back here on this back ledge. So this is a really great tool to use to explain to people about the Passion or about the Easter morning, how Peter and John would have discovered the tomb when they arrived. And then we also go through in the panels, we go through in order the Passion of Jesus. And so within the Passion, one of the very first things was the scourging. And so we have some replicas of the scourges.
Yeah, so this scourge that has 3 strands and 2 metal balls, barbell type, looking at the end of each strand, is the best match for the majority of the wounds on the man in the shroud. And if you look at the negative view, you can see it on the natural image also, but you can really see it best on the negative view. All of these marks are scourge wounds that would have come from this type of scourge. There, by some counts, there are 372. There's other people who have evaluated it in different ways, but wounds all up and down the front and the back of the body, more on the back than the front.
And then the next thing that occurs in the Passion narrative is the crowning of thorns. And this is one of the most impactful items that is in the exhibit. So tell us a little bit about the crown of thorns.
Yeah, so this, of course, in art, you often see the circlet. We have said crown of thorns, but you often see a circlet. So actually, the wounds on the head showed that there were wounds on top as well as on the sides. So it would have been more a cat style crown of thorns.
And there are very long thorns here. People always are shocked by the sharpness and the length of those thorns, and oftentimes I see people move to tears when they contemplate this crown of thorns and how much pain it must have brought to Jesus.
So when we were in Indianapolis, we had the pleasure of Jonathan Rooming from The Chosen going through the exhibit, and I noticed he really spent quite a bit of time contemplating the crown of thorns. That was one of the things that I think really touched him in the exhibit.
And then as we move along through the Passion narrative, we come to the crucifixion, and we have the shroud shows 3 wounds of the crucifixion. So we have 3 replica nails that are a part of the exhibit. So these are the same as nails that have been found in Roman excavations of crucifixion areas. And so you can see it's a very long nail, sharp pointed edge, and then these are, people can touch these if it's a safe situation,
Yeah.
and then you can show how the nail actually with a match to the
Yeah. If you look, the size of the head, it just matches.
So, and then finally, the last weapon that we have is the spearhead. And so this is the shape of the Roman lancia, the size and shape of the Roman lancia, which exactly matches the size and shape of the side wound from when Jesus was pierced in the side. And it is sharp, it's not dangerous, but we like to encourage people to get up close. These items aren't necessarily fragile, but there could be a safety issue in terms of people seeing them. But if a child wants to touch the head of the nail, I encourage that if it's closely monitored, because we want everyone who visits the experience to be able to probe and test and question and explore in a way that makes the passion of Jesus more real to them, not just something in a story, but something that really happened, that really occurred to Jesus, and to contemplate the meaning of each one of these wounds, why they are significant. So Pam, we are here in the midst of this beautiful pop-up exhibit, and you actually purchased this pop-up exhibit, and you have a mission with this exhibit. Can you please share about your plans and what you were doing in this year?
I've got to give just a little bit of background, because I really began my journey with the Shroud based on the Othonia exhibit that's at Notre Dame in Jerusalem. So that one's the one that caught me and kind of set me on the path of researching the Shroud and learning about it. And so now, after last year, I decided I had to do an exhibit. And so very quickly I got connected with this beautiful Othonia exhibit and realized that was exactly what I wanted to do. So I got the benefit of buying the one that was displayed at the National Eucharistic Congress. So this is that very exhibit, and we've started calling it a pop-up exhibit, because what I'm doing with it is I'm taking it wherever someone connects with me and wants the exhibit to go. So we had many requests after the National Eucharistic Congress to bring a Shroud exhibit to them. So I'm doing that as much as I can. And I've got maybe 10, 15 exhibits planned over the next 2 or 3 months. So it's been quite popular. Ultimately, I hope to have it stable in my area so that I could take the exhibit to churches and schools and public venues and really just educate people in my area about the Shroud. And I also am hoping that more people will look at the benefit of having one of these exhibits and will get one for themselves. But Nora, talk about your website because it has such wonderful information about Shroud exhibits around the country.
Okay, you brought up so many great points. So on my personal website, it's shroudeducator.com. There is a page that shows where the permanent exhibits are, both in the US and around the world. And you brought up such a good point. There are different types of exhibits. So this one that we're visiting today, we call a pop-up exhibit, and it actually fits in Pam's vehicle. She packages it all up, loads it up in the back of her vehicle, and drives it to where it needs to be. It took us, with the help of my husband with long arms, to set this exhibit up. It took us about an hour and a half, I would say. So it's very portable, it's somewhat lightweight, and it goes up very quickly, and it's very easy to move around. So that is what we're calling a pop-up exhibit. We also have a version that we call a traveling exhibit, which is the same, and it's what Pam hopes that her exhibit will turn into ultimately. Pam is literally popping up all over the country for 1 or 2 days at a time at various venues, but the idea behind the traveling exhibit is it could be within a diocese or a community, and it could go around to various churches or schools or community venues, and it could be there for a period of time, maybe a week or 2, and it could be accompanied by a speaker who could provide a lot more insight, and then also docents who could be trained within the community to lead people through the exhibit and answer questions and bring each one of the panels to life for the visitors. And then the final style is a permanent style. And right now we have various locations around the country, and again, it's on my website, where the panels are permanently in place. The information is the same, but we do have some more artifacts, like we have a life-size bronze resin figure of the Man of the Shroud, which is very moving and impactful. And it also is sometimes accompanied with a chapel or a place where people can have some time for personal reflection and prayer. I just want to share one story about our experience when we were in the National Eucharistic Congress. We had long lines, sometimes 2 hours. We tried very hard to get the people moving through, but we had a really fabulous group of young volunteers, college-age people, helping with guiding people through the exhibit, not inside the exhibit, but managing the line. And these 3 young people worked for days managing the line. And I went out and I said, I want to personally bring you through the exhibit and explain to you what these people are waiting in line so long for. And all of them said to me, it's okay, I know about the Shroud, I don't need to go in the exhibit. And I said, I insist. And so I brought them in, I started showing them around the exhibit and looking at the weapons and looking at the replica. And one young man, he said, you have to stop. My head is about to explode. And his exact words to me were, why has nobody told me this before? And so that is the mission that is driving Pam and me and all the team of Othonia. We are very, very committed to making sure that people know about the Shroud, not as an end in itself, but because of how it can lead them into a personal relationship with Jesus. And we are really focused on trying to educate young people. Our generation has somewhat knowledge about the Shroud, but there's a whole group of young people who've never heard of it. And so we are doing our best to bring this out into the communities and into the churches so that people can learn about it.
I think with our mindset today, sometimes we think we know everything, but when you look at the Shroud, you realize there's things that we don't know.
Yes, yes. And this negative image is such a great example of the mystery of this photographic negative image that has 3-dimensional information that science cannot explain. So we want to be able to share this with people. So my contact information is available, and you can reach out and we will help you in terms of how you can bring this information to your community.
Nora, if you had to pick one thing that you're favorite thing about this exhibit, what would you say?
I would say our secret sauce of Othonia is the connection of the wounds that are shown on the man of the shroud to the scriptures. A lot of times the shroud is called either the fifth gospel or a gospel written in blood. And we can read in the scriptures just only small little snippets. It says things very briefly. He was scourged, and then he was crucified. And so the scriptures don't give us a lot of information, but when you read the scriptures with the shroud gives us so much more information about what Jesus suffered during his passion and death.
And Nora, I know you like me, the best part of the shroud and studying the shroud is how it pulls you to the resurrection.
Yes, that's such a good point. And we try to incorporate that in the way that we design the color scheme of the panels. In the past, we have tended to talk about the shroud as a death cloth, only focused on it being on the burying the dead body of Jesus. However, as you mentioned, it draws us into the resurrection. You get the sense when you look at the serene, majestic face of the man of the shroud that it's just the split second before he opens his eyes in resurrected glory. And we wanted to depict that in the color scheme that we used for the banners. So we've got this dark corner down here, but as we move across the banner, we're moving into light toward the glory of the resurrection. And so we want everyone to leave this exhibit contemplating about what Jesus endured for us, but what is the result of that? It's our salvation.
So if you're interested in this display and having this display at your venue, you can contact us. Nora has a wonderful website called SHROUDeducator.com, and there's information about displays available there, and my contact information is there.
Thank you, Pam.